Hi, scary lovers! Today is Sunday, so it's time for True Crime Sunday. Due to unforeseen circumstances and some misplanning in time on my behalf, I am not in the ability to record all audio for today's case. But because I still want to have a video up in time, I have decided to just record my intro. Today's case is one of America's most infamous murder cases. I also want to add a disclaimer. Although I don't add any pictures, I want to make clear we are talking about a very gruesome act about a girl who lost her life way too soon. All the information we will be discussing later I have found on the internet and I have put together to make my version of the story. Which for I will use AI, text-to-speech, to make the video complete. Please like and subscribe if you're into true crime cases like this and want to hear more stories from me. You can also always leave a comment with suggestions for future cases. Or just let me know what you think of today's story. Now I'm gonna stop yapping and we're gonna start discussing today's case, which is about Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia.
The Black Dahlia, or Elizabeth Short, is one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. Short spent the last 6 months of her life in Southern California, mostly in the Los Angeles area. Shortly before her death, she had been working as a waitress and rented a room behind the Florentine Gardens nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard. According to some sources, she had aspirations to be a film star, though she had no known acting jobs. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in the Hyde Park neighborhood of Boston, as a middle child of 5. Her father was a sailor, and her mother was a housewife. In 1927, they settled down in Medford, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. By then, her father built miniature golf courses until he lost most of his savings in the 1929 stock market crash. Years later, in 1930, his car was found abandoned on the Charlestown Bridge, and it was assumed that he had jumped into the Charles River. Believing her husband to be deceased, Short's mother began working as a bookkeeper to support the family. Troubled by bronchitis and severe asthma attacks, Short had to undergo lung surgery at age 15, after which doctors suggested she periodically relocate to a milder climate to prevent further respiratory problems. Her mother sent her to spend winters with family friends in Miami, Florida, for the next 3 years. In late 1942, after 12 years of thinking her husband was dead, Short's mother received a letter with apology from her presumed deceased husband, which revealed that he was in fact alive and had started a new life in California. After some correspondence, later that year in December, at age 18, Short made the decision to relocate to Vallejo, California, and go living with her father, whom she had not seen since age 6. Arguments between Short and her father led to her moving out only a short time after moving in January 1943. Short took a job at the base exchange at Camp Cook near Lompoc, briefly dating and living with a U.S. Army Air Force sergeant who reportedly abused her. She left Lompoc in mid-1943 and moved to Santa Barbara, where she was arrested on September 23, 1943, for drinking at a local bar while underage. Juvenile authorities sent her back to Massachusetts, but instead she returned to Florida, making only occasional visits to her family near Boston. While in Florida, Short met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., a decorated Army Air Force officer of the 2nd Air Commando Group, who was training for deployment to Southeast Asian Theater of World War II. Short later told friends that Gordon had proposed to marry in a letter, while he was recovering from injuries from a plane crash in India. She accepted his offer, but Gordon died in a second crash on August 10, 1945. Short was devastated. She wanted to marry badly. Due to her beauty, she received a lot of attention from men. For her, this was a welcome distraction. Her dream was in tatters, so she used the men to go out for dinner or to get a place to live. She spent the little money she earned as a waitress on her clothes and her appearance. Short thought it was extremely important to always look good. She was a natural beauty and groomed herself as such. She always dressed up with beautiful peep-toe heels and beautiful dresses. She really was a beauty for the eye. She preferred to wear black dresses, but honestly, what woman doesn't like to do this? Because she liked to wear black so much, she got her nickname, the Black Dahlia, posthumously, as newspapers of the period often nicknamed particularly lurid crimes. The term may have originated from a film noir murder mystery, The Blue Dahlia, which came out in 1946. In July 1946, Short relocated to Los Angeles to visit Army Air Force Lieutenant Joseph Gordon Fickling, an acquaintance from Florida, who was stationed at the Naval Reserve Air Base in Long Beach. From November to December of that year, she stayed in a small two-room apartment with 8 other women. They all shared the same ambitions to make it in Hollywood. She had to pay $1 per day for this. When she could no longer afford this, she moved to San Diego on December 8th. In San Diego, she meets Dorothy French, after she wakes her up when Short is sleeping on the seats of the theater where Dorothy works. Short tells Dorothy that she has just left Hollywood and is suddenly homeless. This sweet woman offers Short a place to sleep. Dorothy lives with her mother and brother in Pacific Beach near San Diego. There she stays for a while. In the meantime, she had met a man, Robert Manley. The only problem was that Robert was actually married and had a 4-month-old child. Her living situation was not ideal. Dorothy's mother had enough of Elizabeth's not working, only partying life. They had offered her a place to stay and Elizabeth did nothing in return. So they told her she could no longer stay there. On January 9, 1947, Short returned to Los Angeles with Robert Red Manley. She had asked him to give her a ride. Manley stated that he dropped Short off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, and that Short was to meet her sister, who was visiting from Boston, that afternoon. By some accounts, staff of the Biltmore recalled having seen Short using the lobby telephone. Shortly after, she was allegedly seen by patrons of the Crown Grill Cocktail Lounge at 754 South Olive Street. After that night, she disappeared, and she would never been seen alive after that night. On January 15, 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered. Short's naked body, severed into 2 pieces, and gruesomely mutilated, was found in a vacant lot on the west side of South Norton Avenue, midway between Coliseum Street and West 39th Street. The discovery left a shocking impression on the community. Short's severely mutilated body was completely severed at the waist and drained of blood, leaving her skin a pallid white. Autopsy determined that she had been dead for around 10 hours prior to the discovery, leaving her time of death either sometime during the evening of January 14th or the early morning hours of January 15th. The body had apparently been washed by the killer. Short's face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating an effect known as the Joker smile. She had several cuts on her thigh and breasts, where entire portions of flesh had been sliced away. The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper, and her intestines had been tucked neatly beneath her buttocks. The corpse had been posed, with her hands over her head, her elbows bent at right angles, and her legs spread apart. Near the body, detectives located a heel print on the ground amid the tire tracks, and a cement sack containing watery blood was also found nearby. An autopsy of Short's body was performed on January 16, 1947, by Frederick Newbar, the Los Angeles County coroner. Newbar's autopsy report stated that Short was 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed 115 pounds, and had light blue eyes, brown hair, and badly decayed teeth. There were ligature marks on her ankles, wrists, and neck, and an irregular laceration with superficial tissue loss on her right breast. Newbar also noted superficial lacerations on the right forearm, left upper arm, and the lower left side of the chest. The body had been cut completely in half by a technique taught in the 1930s called a hemicorporectomy. The lower half of her body had been removed by transecting the lumbar spine between the second and third lumbar vertebrae, thus severing the intestine at the duodenum. Newbar's report noted very little bruising along the incision line, suggesting it had been performed after death. Another gaping laceration, measuring more than 4 inches, ran longitudinally from the umbilicus to the suprapubic region. The lacerations on each side of the face, which extended from the corners of the lips, were measured at 3 inches on the right side of the face and 2.5 inches on the left. The skull was not fractured, but there was bruising noted on the front and right side of her scalp, with a small amount of bleeding in the subarachnoid space on the right side, consistent with blows to the head. The cause of death was determined to be hemorrhaging from the lacerations to her face and the shock from blows to the head and face. Newbar noted that Short's anal canal was dilated almost 2 inches, suggesting that she might have been taken advantage of. Samples were taken from her body testing for the presence of sperm, but the results came back negative. Short was identified after her fingerprints were sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Her fingerprints were on file from her 1943 arrest. Immediately following Short's identification, reporters from William Randolph Hearst's Los Angeles Examiner made a disgusting choice by contacting her mother, Phoebe Short, in Boston, and told her that her daughter had won a beauty contest. It was only after prying as much personal information as they could from Phoebe that the reporters revealed that her daughter had in fact been murdered. On January 21, 1947, a person claiming to be Short's killer placed a phone call to the office of James Richardson, the editor of the Examiner, congratulating Richardson on the newspaper's coverage of the case and stating he planned on eventually turning himself in, but not before allowing police to pursue him further. Additionally, the caller told Richardson to expect some souvenirs of Short in the mail. On January 24th, a suspicious envelope was discovered, addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers, with individual words that had been cut and pasted from newspaper clippings. Additionally, a large message on the face of the envelope read, "Here is Dahlia's belongings." The envelope contained Short's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, names written on pieces of paper, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the cover. The packet had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, similarly to Short's body, which led police to suspect the packet had been sent directly by her killer. Despite efforts to clean the packet, several partial fingerprints were lifted from the envelope and sent to the FBI for testing. However, the prints were compromised in transit and thus could not be properly analyzed. The same day the packet was received by the Examiner, a handbag and a black suede shoe were reported to have been seen on top of a garbage can in an alley a short distance from Norton Avenue, 2 miles from the crime scene. The items were recovered by police, but they had also been wiped clean with gasoline, destroying any fingerprints. On January 26th, another letter was received by the Examiner, this time handwritten, which read, "Here it is. Turning in Wednesday, January 29th, 10 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia Avenger." The letter also named a location at which the supposed killer would turn himself in. Police waited at the location on the morning of January 29th, but the alleged killer did not appear. Instead, at 1 p.m., the Examiner offices received another cut and pasted letter which read, "Have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified." The graphic nature of the crime and the subsequent letters received by the Examiner had resulted in a media circus surrounding Short's murder. Both local and national publications covered the story heavily, many of which reprinted sensationalistic reports suggesting that Short had been tortured for hours prior to her death. The information, however, was false, yet police allowed the reports to circulate so as to conceal Short's true cause of death, cerebral hemorrhage, from the public. Further reports about her personal life were publicized, including details about her alleged declining of Hansen's sexual advances. Additionally, a stripper who was an acquaintance of Short's told police that she liked to get guys worked up over her, but she'd leave them hanging dry. This led some reporters and detectives to look into the possibility that Short was a lesbian and begin questioning employees and patrons of gay bars in Los Angeles. This claim, however, remained unsubstantiated. The Herald Express also received several letters from the purported killer, again made with cut and pasted clippings, one of which read, "I will give up on Dahlia killing if I get 10 years. Don't try to find me." On February 1st, the Los Angeles Daily News reported that the case had run into a stone wall, with no new leads for investigators to pursue. The Examiner continued to run stories on the murder and the investigation, which was front-page news for 35 days following the discovery of the body. When interviewed, lead investigator Captain Jack Donahue told the press that he believed Short's murder had taken place in a remote building or shack on the outskirts of Los Angeles, and that her body transported into the city where it was disposed of. Based on the precise cuts and dissection of Short's body, the LAPD looked into the possibility that the murderer had been a surgeon, doctor, or someone with medical knowledge. In mid-February 1947, the LAPD served a warrant to the University of Southern California Medical School, which was located near the site where the body had been discovered, requesting a complete list of the program students. The university agreed so long as the students' identities remained private. Background checks were conducted but yielded no results. On March 14th, an apparent suicide note scrawled in pencil on a bit of paper was found tucked in a shoe in a pile of men's clothing by the ocean's edge at the foot of Breeze Avenue in Venice. The note read, "To whom it may concern, I have waited for the police to capture me for the Black Dahlia killing, but have not. I am too much of a coward to turn myself in, so this is the best way out for me. I couldn't help myself for that or this. Sorry, Mary." The pile of clothing was first seen by a beach caretaker, who reported the discovery to lifeguard Captain John Dillon. Dillon immediately notified Captain L. E. Christensen of West Los Angeles Police Station. The clothes included a coat and trousers of blue herringbone tweed, a brown and white t-shirt, white jockey shorts, tan socks, and tan moccasin leisure shoes, size about 8. The clothes gave no clue about the identity of their owner. Police quickly deemed Mark Hansen, the owner of the address book found in the packet, a suspect. Hansen was a wealthy local nightclub and theater owner and an acquaintance at whose home Short had stayed with friends. According to some sources, Hansen also confirmed that the purse and shoe discovered in the alley were in fact Short's, and Toth, Short's friend and roommate, told investigators that Short had recently rejected sexual advances from Hansen and suggested it as potential motive for him to kill her. However, he was cleared of suspicion in the case. In addition to Hansen, the LAPD interviewed over 150 men in the ensuing weeks whom they believed to be potential suspects. Manley, who had been one of the last people to see Short alive, was also investigated, but was cleared of suspicion after passing numerous polygraph examinations. Police also interviewed several persons found listed in Hansen's address book, including Martin Lewis, who had been an acquaintance of Short's. Lewis was able to provide an alibi for the date of Short's murder, as he was in Portland, Oregon visiting his dying father-in-law. A total of 750 investigators from the LAPD and other departments worked on the case during its initial stages, including 400 sheriff's deputies and 250 California State Patrol officers. Various locations were searched for potential evidence, including storm drains throughout Los Angeles, abandoned structures, and various sites along the Los Angeles River, but the searches yielded no further evidence. City Councilman Lloyd G. Davis posted a $10,000 reward for information leading police to Short's killer. After the announcement of the reward, various persons came forward with confessions, most of which police dismissed as false. Several of the false confessors were charged with obstruction of justice. By the spring of 1947, Short's murder had become a cold case with few new leads. Sergeant Finis Brown, one of the lead detectives on the case, blamed the press for compromising the investigation through journalists' probing of details and unverified reporting. In September 1949, a grand jury convened to discuss inadequacies in the LAPD's homicide unit based on their failure to solve numerous murders, especially those of women and children, in the previous several years, Short's being one of them. In the aftermath of the grand jury, further investigation was done on Short's past, with detectives tracing her movements between Massachusetts, California, and Florida, and also interviewed people who knew her in Texas and New Orleans. However, the interviews yielded no useful information in the murder. The case has never been definitively solved, and numerous theories have emerged about who might be responsible for Elizabeth Short's murder. Despite many suspects over the years, the identity of the killer remains a mystery, contributing to the intrigue surrounding this tragic and horrifying event. The Black Dahlia continues to be a captivating subject for true crime stories and has inspired countless books, films, and documentaries. Hope you enjoyed my version of this story. Please let me know down below what kind of stories you would like to hear more from. Like and subscribe if you're into scary stories or true crime like me. Then all I've left to say is, stay safe and I'll see you tomorrow.